All right, Shalom. There's the brother Nahalia from the GMS Orlando camp. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasher Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. This is Joel chapter 3. All right, and I want to start at verse 9. All right, and it reads, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai." All right, now I want to highlight verse 9 in particular concerning these three verses. All right, and how it relates to the Ukraine crisis. All right, the tension, all right, between the bear, all right, and the eagle, if you will. All right, with the bear being Russia and its allies, all right, and America, which is known as Babylon the Great in the scriptures, all right, or the daughter of Babylon, all right, in the scriptures. All right, now what you see right now, all right, is a lot of buildup. All right, you have military aid being pushed toward this border. All right, as this article states, the third batch of U.S. military aid arrives in Ukraine during Russian standoff. Some of that aid is lethal aid. All right, and that would include missiles, ammunition. All right. And what people, especially in Babylon, they're so accustomed to things being this way and close calls that they aren't accustomed to things actually getting real. All right. And what's happening on that border is real. All right. You have to think it costs millions of dollars to move the amount of equipment. All right. Both on the side of America and on the side of Russia. All right. There's been some reports that say up to 75% of Russia's military has been activated, all right, and mobilized. All right. There were talks of Russia alerting their nuclear department. You know, all of these things are coming to pass. All right. We're not in a time where the Lord is not just gradually moving things. Now things are beginning to speed up. All right. Now, when you look at this article, it says a third shipment of U.S. military aid arrived in Ukraine on Tuesday as tensions mount over Russia's troop buildup and Western nations and NATO ramp up their military presence in Eastern Europe. Now, this puts Putin in a very delicate position. All right. While you have America painting Russia as the aggressor, you know, they fail to acknowledge that all of this is happening on the border of Russia. All right, which is known as Gog and Magog, because those are the territories that are originally inhabited by Japheth. All right, and his descendants. Gog and Magog would be among those descendants. All right, so when you see in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, all right, let's go. So Ezekiel 38 and verse 1 reads, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord power, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords." Now, it's beautiful when you look at how the Lord is moving the pieces, because he's basically forcing, all right, Putin into a position, a pressure cooker, if you will. Now, if he decides to do nothing, all right, the U.S. will continue to build up equipment on his border. All right, the provocations won't stop. All right, and what we've seen, for those who have actually been following this for the last five or more years, is that there's been a constant aggression towards Russia, whether it's the media and how they paint Russia, all right, which is, all right, the bear, all right. They're known as, again, Gog, the land of Magog. Now, the U.S. has been pushing this narrative that Russia is the aggressor, China as well are the aggressors, when really they're just the number one competitor. All right, when you look at the economy, all right, China has put a foothold, really almost a monopoly, all right, on certain points in the economy. All right, a lot of things are made through Chinese labor, which gives them leverage. Their alliance with Russia gives them leverage together. All right. To summarize Russia's military capability, they have the ability to defend against airstrikes, really. All right. They have the ability to attack aircraft carriers. These are the things that the U.S. military specialize in. But the Ukraine crisis is very delicate because now it's almost like setting up shop in front of somebody's door. All right. If that door was a nation of people, all right, and that door was a border. And by them weaponizing the Ukraine government, all right, they actually put these guys in a position to where Russia has to respond. They don't have a choice. And this is the beauty of it. That's why the Lord said he will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. This is why they've put at least 100,000. I've heard some accounts say 125,000 troops have been mobilized toward that border. That cost lots of money and logistics to make those type of moves. These moves are not being made for naught. At the same time, you have China making moves on its own, who may possibly see this as an opportunity to take Taiwan. All right, because again, the Third World War will take place. All right, now it says a third shipment of U.S. military aid arrived in Ukraine on Tuesday as tensions mount over Russia's troop buildup and Western nations and NATO ramp up their military presence in Eastern Europe. Images show workers unloading crates of equipment and munitions at the Boryspil airport outside Kyiv, with containers clearly stenciled with the words 50 cal. So they're loading them up with ammunition, all right? Much of the ammunition will be sent to Ukraine's frontline defenders. The delivery is part of a $200 million security support package approved by President Biden in late December. Now, this is happening on the border of Russia, all right? So you can understand, all right, from a nation standpoint, why this is so critical. All right, now let's continue. There are a few other articles I want to touch. All right. It says U.S. promises to keep Europe warm if Russia invades Ukraine, cuts oil and gas exports. Now, you have to realize that Russia supplies a lot of exports to European countries. This is why you have different countries. Germany is an example of nations who are trying to de-escalate a situation. Why? Because they depend on Russia for gas and oil. This is beautiful, right? So watch this. All right. It says the White House vowed Tuesday that Europe will not freeze this winter if Russia cuts off its natural gas or crude oil exports as retaliation for economic sanctions promised by the U.S. and its allies if Moscow invades Ukraine. Senior administration officials revealed Tuesday that they have been working to identify natural gas sources around the world, from North Africa and the Middle East to Asia and the United States. As one official put it, for Europe to tap into should Russia restrict its supply, which would happen in a time of war. They would have to restrict that supply to supply themselves. And again, as a response to economic sanctions. All right. And people will have agreed with it. The allies. Man, this is when you look at it from this standpoint through the spirit. A lot of people are avoiding this through distractions, but war is inevitable. All right. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Whether it's the Ukrainian border or the South China Sea. All right. Or the situation that is continuing to escalate with the Israelis. All right. And their bombings. All right. Of Gaza and other areas. All right. These things, they're all pointing to something that is inevitable, not something that is going to die down. And that's what most people are used to. They're used to things getting escalated and dying down. But that's not the situation that we're in, because these situations continue to pile on top of each other. All right, real quick. This is Revelation chapter 11 and verse 14. And it reads, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And the Lord is using a pressure cooker. All right, he's using a lot of these different situations to put the kings of the earth in a position where they feel they have no other option. And this is the beauty of chess. All right, when you look at the game of chess, all right, if you've thought moves ahead, you know how to put your opponent into a position where you can predict their movements by placing pressure in certain areas. This is what the Lord is doing to bring about World War III. It's not just one issue. It's a compound amount of issues. And at any moment in time, any one of those issues can escalate to a point of no return. All right. Now, this is the U.S. vowing to supply the European countries with oil and gas exports. All right. Should Russia cut off its supply. And this is beautiful. All right. Real quick, I'm going to just jump down to the point. All right. It says Russia supplies approximately 40 billion cubic meters of natural gas to Europe each year through Ukraine. Now, if Ukraine becomes a war zone, you already know what to expect concerning the gas and oil exports. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, more than 89% of Moscow's natural gas exports went to Europe or Eurasian countries in 2020, the most recent year for which statistics are available. We don't need to replace all of that for the remainder of the winter because there's still gas in storage. One official said Tuesday of the supply that goes through Ukraine, but only the portion that is necessary to get through the winter and the spring. All right, man, this is beautiful because it's a matter of when. Because all of the nations are watching this, right? If Russia doesn't respond, all right, then the Russian allies look at Russia as a weak person to ally themselves with. The same thing goes for the U.S. If the U.S. can't really protect Ukraine from Russia, all right, then all of those smaller countries in those areas, all right, are going to look at that and take that into account for their decision making for the future. And this is why war is inevitable, because someone is going to have to show that they're able to protect their allies. And there's a line being drawn in the sand, and it has been for years, between the BRICS nations and the NATO and EU nations. This is only a further escalation. And this is why Putin cannot afford to not respond. Because if he just didn't respond, now you have missiles literally on your border. All right, now let's go back. There was one more article I wanted to touch. All right. Yes. So it says U.S. plane brings Javelin missiles and launchers to Ukraine. It says Ukrainian service members unload a shipment of military aid delivered as part of the United States of America's security assistance to Ukraine at the Boryspil International Airport outside Kyiv, Ukraine, January 25th, 2022. Now, the reason that Russia was requesting a guarantee or assurances that the Ukrainian government would not join NATO is because of situations like this. The U.S. being able to freely basically use the Ukraine territory as a launch pad for a possible invasion of Russia. This incident has proven to be a provocation. All right. And by the U.S. doing this and inviting missiles and bringing missiles into the Ukrainian territory, it's really an act of war. All right. When you look at Russia and their perspective, this is beautiful, man. Watch this. All right. Proverbs, the 21st chapter and the first verse reads, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will." All right. And the Lord he's working on the minds of these kings. All right. To bring about World War III. And you can see the chess pieces being moved. You can see a lot of options being taken away from these world leaders bit by bit. Putin at a press conference last month or the month before that mentioned that this situation is literally right on their doorstep. So they can't afford to not respond and have a show of force. This is why they've activated 75% of their military and mobilized it. Why? Because they can't afford to let this lie. All right. And you have other countries in that area. I believe it's pronounced Kazakhstan. All right. And another country that begins with the letter D. But these two countries are being destabilized as well as possible alternatives, because, again, the U.S. and the NATO situation, they're mobilizing because they understand that there will be a conflict eventually, and they're trying to find places of leverage. Being able to stack up military equipment along Russia's border gives them a certain advantage if and when an attack is necessary. Everybody's playing for keeps. And this is important to understand because the average Babylonian, all right, have their head in the sand and they don't believe that this is actually going to play out. They actually believe the opposite. They don't think that the Lord is going to allow war. They don't think that the nations are going to get that far, but they don't realize what happens outside of the U.S. The amount of money you pay for your coffee, all right, here, all right, is completely different from the lifestyle that other people in other countries live. And their leaders see the difference in lifestyle. And as their options run out, they're going to move to more desperate measures. And a lot of times, more desperate measures equals more violent measures. And it's a snowball effect. Because of all of these defense contracts and all of these alliances, everybody's going to be forced to get involved in this fight. Not every single country, but the major countries, for that matter, are going to be forced to be involved in this battle. This is the beauty of what the Lord is actually doing out here, man. Let me go back to this, because there was one more article. Yep. Call me how about Shimei Shah. It says Russia has been warning about Ukraine for decades. The West should have listened. Ukrainian soldiers walk at the line of separation from pro-Russian rebels near Katarinivka, Donetsk region, Ukraine, Tuesday, December 7, 2021. Germany's refusal to join other NATO members in supplying Ukraine with weapons has frustrated allies and prompted some to question Berlin's resolve in standing up to Russia. Why? Because they need the exports. They need the gas and the oil. I believe Nord Stream 2, the pipeline goes to Germany, if I'm not mistaken. All right, I could be wrong on that. But they have certain ties to Russia, where they can't just afford to just side with the U.S. See, a lot of nations are going to have to think for the well-being of their own people. And that's going to, this is going to create a situation unlike any other ever seen on the earth, man. Man, this has been decades in the making. Centuries, really. All right, now it says, let me just jump down. I don't want to deal with when I was a journalist situation. Let me just jump down. Yep, here we go. This is the point. It says Russian fears about the expansion of a potentially hostile military alliance to Russia's borders should be understandable to any American who has heard of the Monroe Doctrine. In Georgia and Ukraine, there are also specific issues inherited from the Soviet Union. In the case of Georgia, the separatist movements of the Abkhaz and Osseti minorities and the resulting ethnic conflicts involving Russia. Such ethnic conflicts over territory, with the involvement of outside powers, are all too common during and after the fall of empires. Think, for example, of Turkey's invasion of Cyprus in 1974 and Ankar's establishment of an internationally unrecognized mini-state of the Turkish Cypriot minority. Now, this is highlighting how the Russian fears are understandable. Their response is understandable. All right, it says, let me just jump down to this. It says, in the case of Ukraine, NATO membership for that country implied the expulsion of Russia from the naval base of Sevastopol in Crimea. a city of immense importance to Russia, both strategic and emotional, and the creation of a hard international frontier between Russia and the Russian and Russian-speaking minorities in Ukraine, making up more than a third of the Ukrainian population. So this is what they're not telling you. A third of the population. Man, this is crazy. The Russian establishment fears, in addition, that NATO would act as a cover for a program of state-backed Ukrainian ethnic nationalism intended to destroy Russian culture and the Russian language in Ukraine. The fears were increased by what happened in Estonia and Latvia, where after independence, the national governments broke their previous promises to Russia and the local Russian minorities to respect their political, educational, and linguistic rights, which did not prevent them joining NATO and the EU. So Russia is basically citing the obvious fears that if the Ukraine sides with NATO and the U.S., they can be weaponized. All right. The culture, all right, of those who are pro-Russia could be turned into a propaganda to be against Russia. Because contrary to popular belief, the conquest of the Ukraine, if that were to happen, is not the end of it. This is an unavoidable situation on all fronts, whether it's the South China Sea or the Ukrainian situation, the Middle East, Syria. All right, all of these situations have two big players behind all of it. All right, and that is Russia and its allies and the U.S. and its allies. All right, and through the Spirit, we're in a beautiful time to see how this unfolds. All right, so I want to highlight those articles through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai and just touch on it through the spirit of prophecy. All right, Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah, and the sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.